Alright, hi friends, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the Mcclellan oscillator. So I talked a little bit about it on TikTok, a bit on YouTube Shorts, but I also want to take time to create a longer form video to explain to you guys how I use it, why I use it. I will be doing a short video series and split it up, but I feel that this is just much better. So let's get into the charts. So number one, let's take a look at TradingView over here. The Mcclellan oscillator isn't something that you can simply find on the right side over here and quickly use it like a simple moving average. In fact, you can only find it if you search for someone who has already built it. So for example, Mcclellan oscillator, there is a guy named Lazy Bear and he has already built one. So let's see if we can pull it up. And this is his version of the Mcclellan oscillator. It's fairly similar to the one that I have, but again, it's not something that is already available. You would have to search for it yourself. And again, depending on how he coded it, it could be useful, it may not be useful. And again, how do you use this to trade is relatively difficult. So I first of all, don't really like all these shenanigan colors because that's just not how I personally use the Mcclellan oscillator. So let's get rid of that. So I wrote my own script, which I'll add to the chart over here. I will probably release this. I just prefer how this looks. So I wrote a script with the bars again. I just prefer this color. It's lighter color. I'm using blue. It's easy for you to see. Whenever the Mcclellan oscillator closes below 80, that is a signal. So let's roughly calculate your win rate. Okay, so you can see it's signaling usually a couple of months apart, and on average, after doing a rough back test, remember there isn't that many data points to test, maybe 20, 30. So if you do, so again, using this as a raw technical indicator is actually very silly. You wouldn't be able to simply make a fortune out of this because you need to understand what the Mcclellan oscillator means and what it represents in the market. What is the sentiment behind all these movements? See, again, sometimes it doesn't signal properly. It signals a bit too early and then it missed the capitulation. So once again, this isn't an indicator where you use it to trade. There are false signals over here, whereas if we continue to keep going and I keep talking, you can see that the Mcclellan oscillator is relatively good at spotting certain bottoms. Again, the win rate is about 70 to 90% depending on how you set your risk to reward ratio. So for example, if you set it here, let me pull an example up. You buy on the first non-blue line. So let's say you buy in here because for whatever reason you decide to only use one indicator to position your trades, but let's say you do that, you wait till it's going to close, you set a buy order here. What is the stop loss? Maybe a 1 to 2 risk to reward ratio, 1 to 1 ratio. So depending on how you set it, right? So let's say you set a 1 to 1 ratio and you set it over here. We set it to a 1 to 1 ratio, you would have lost over here, right? And how much would you have lost? Just here. And at a 1%, right? So it really depends on how you want to set it. If you set this, a wider stop loss and a 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio, you would have also gotten it right. And again, I'm just pulling out random. This is hindsight bias. So this gives you a signal that there may be a run up, but how you take this and apply it is going to be the real challenge over here. So depending on how you set up your risk to reward ratio, you'll be able to then take profit, which is why trading is not so simple. Indicators alone will not be able to make you rich. Let's say, on this day, you hear that the Federal Reserve is going to print money, right? So even though the Mcclellan oscillator signaled much earlier, this is the long signal right here because the Federal Reserve is starting to print money. So you have to be very dynamic, right? So the Mcclellan oscillator tells you something is happening. The capitulation is, but how you use that information and combine it to create a trade is really up to you. So I think I've proven my point over here that the Mcclellan oscillator is very good at very closely timing bottoms, right? But what does it mean and how it can actually impact your trades as well? So let's move on to what it means. So first of all, let's start with the formula over here. The Mcclellan oscillator formula is nothing special. Anybody can get their hands of it. I am not a genius. I didn't invent the formula. It's already out there. So what is the Mcclellan oscillator? It is a market breadth indicator that is based on the difference between the advancing and declining issue on a stock exchange such as the New York Stock Exchange or the Nasdaq. It is an indicator to tell you the market is in a capitulation state. So it doesn't matter whether I change to ZIM or NIM, it should always remain the same. So now I go to TSM, as you can see, no matter what chart I change it to, this remains the same because this is based off the entire stock exchange. Okay, at least this one is based off the New York Stock Exchange. So it doesn't matter. This isn't a bar chart, simple moving average. So how do I get it, right? Well, let's look at what it says, right? We need to see the difference between the number of advancing and declining issue stock. So we have the number of advancing stock right here, the ADVN for the New York Stock Exchange, and we have the DECN, which is the New York Stock Exchange declining stocks. So with that, I write out a script. Again, I'm not a genius. I actually looked at how other people wrote it. I reformatted it to the way that I like it. You can look at it and I will probably release this version for everyone to use as well. So I also drew a line right here at 80. Let me pull this away. So once it crosses 80, this will turn blue. I have created my own proprietary multi-look version, cleaner, simpler. I don't like too many colors. The colors need to represent something, and it has to be easy for me to spot. So right over here, the Mcclellan oscillator is firing off. So over here, I have my own settings. It is not fully built yet. I can do one for the New York Stock Exchange, I can do one for the NASDAQ, or I can do one with the average. And so right now, the one that is being shown is the New York Stock Exchange. You can go to stockcharts.com and get a free version that you can see like this. You got the daily view, you can see it did cross below 80. You can see one for the NASDAQ as well, and you can see it hasn't crossed below 80 yet. Right? So that's giving you a potential signal that, you know, the NASDAQ composite is perhaps not ready for a capitulation just yet. So this is the NYMO, this is the NAMO. The NYMO stands for the New York Stock Exchange Mcclellan Oscillator. The NAMO stands for the NASDAQ Composite Mcclellan Oscillator. So again, this is free. You can just Google it, you will get it for free. But the reason again why I do this, because it's just so much easier for me to plan and execute trades when I can see overall what on earth is going on. So why do I take 80? So the reason why I take 80 is because I find that when prices fall below 80, that is telling me that something has capitulated. Someone or some group of people are capitulating. So one theory that I've learned from someone else before, which kind of makes sense, big companies and hedge funds and banks, a lot of them need to be able to hedge the best. They are taking on leverage, and when price moves against them too greatly, they are forced to cover. So if they're long a stock and it's moving against them and they have leverage, they are forced to cover, they are forced to sell, right? Or else you're going to get liquidated, or they need to borrow more capital. So when that happens, they don't sell off one stock. They're selling off massive amounts of stocks. So your big cap, your small cap, your medium cap, everything is being affected. Some group of people are mass selling off. And when everything's just mass selling off, that usually means that at that point of time, it is undervalued in the market, which means there is going to be a reversal. I got the indicator here. I can see, is it a good time to buy? And I must consider the fundamental news as well. What has happened during this period? People thought we are going to get a dovish Fed. You know what? The economy is going to crash. The Federal Reserve is going to stop hiking rates. We're going to see an uptick. We're going to go to the moon. The Federal Reserve said no. We're going to be hawkish. And so they keep pushing down. A mean reversion at least, which is going back to the mean. What I know is that I do not want to be entering a short here. That's basically it. This is also a short position exit. Again, if you shorted this entire thing, you see the signal, get the hell out. If you had been able to make good shots, whenever you see this indicator, just stop. Just stop. This is just one of the many tools that I look at, me and my sister look at. This isn't MACD or some magic indicator. This needs to be used dynamically in the market. So use it to understand sentiment, and you should be able to roughly get a good trade. So a recent one, I shorted right at the top, right here. Again, not because I'm smart, I'm not saying I'm smart or anything. I try my best to release my trades and give more in-depth explanation. On the 18th of August, I announced that I'm going to short the market, and that's again right at the top. I saw this Mcclellan oscillator, boom, I'm out of the market. I'm not going to mess with this at all. So this is the Mcclellan oscillator. I hope this gives a better explanation of how the Mcclellan oscillator works. This is one of the very first few videos that I'm trying to do to give explanations on market-related technical indicators. Most people trade either just basically on fundamentals, or they use technicals like simple moving averages, Fibonacci's, and again, those are not bad, but when you combine it together with market sentiment and market related indicators, right, then you're able to get a much bigger picture and hopefully be able to make trades that will be better for you. So I hope this helps. Peace out.